to be any little thing that we want to be. No matter what comes our way, we'll be together, together.
Welcome to Homeschooling Down South. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Kat. We're two Southern homeschooling mamas sharing real talk, resources, and inspiration for life and learning in the Southeast.
Each week, it's summer, y'all, and we're breaking the rules and shaking things up a little bit.
That's right. We're right here in your feed each week, but our summer season has a different flavor.
So whether you're listening on summer vacation or chilling by the pool, we are sharing homeschooling conversations to refresh and inspire.
Pull up a chair and join us as we keep celebrating the joy, freedom, and community of homeschooling down south, summer style. Welcome back, y'all. We're still in our mini-series about conferences, conventions, expos that are happening here in the southeastern region that one or both of us have attended. And today we're going to be talking about the Wild and Free Conference. I have been to 4 Wild and Free conferences, and so I'm really excited to share my experiences with y'all.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear all about it and ask you all the questions. So I have the knowledge, just from being your friend and business partner, that you went this last year in a little bit different capacity. You went as a volunteer, but the prior 3 years, you just went as an attendee.
Yes.
So I would love to hear maybe your experience from your very first year, what that was like. And then I would love to hear all about how that compared to your experience volunteering.
Sure. My first year, I went in thinking I was going to attend more of the expo and conventions that we've been to since. This was my first homeschooling conference of any kind, and I was expecting maybe a couple keynotes and some breakout sessions and an exhibitors hall. And that is not what the Wild and Free Conference is. The Wild and Free Conference feels more like a retreat with 999 of your closest friends who you've never met before. Or maybe you have. And instead of keynotes and breakout sessions, everybody listens to all of the talks. But I didn't know that. And there's also musical components and some comedy thrown in there. And then instead of an exhibit hall, they have a maker's market. So when I arrived for my first conference, I just didn't know going in what to expect. I knew the doors opened at 5 or 5:30. And so I got there at 5 or 5:30. And the Wild and Free Conference is held at a space called the Factory in Franklin, Tennessee. It's a multi-use facility, so it has a large event hall, but it also has shops and restaurants and office locations on the second floor. And on Saturday mornings, it has a huge farmer's market. So I went and grabbed dinner at the Factory, and then I went to get in line, and the line was all the way through the entire building. And I was very overwhelmed because I felt confused and everybody was waiting. There's cheering when the doors open, and it's just a big deal, which I just didn't know. I wasn't prepared for. And I went and I found myself a little spot in the back corner on a raised stage area. And that first conference, I will never forget. They opened up with the song The Story, which I had been listening to on my drive. And then Ainsley Arment, who is the founder of Wild and Free, she wrote the book, The Call of the Wild and Free. She gives a welcome speech. And then from that point, there is one speaker on Friday night. And that first year that I went, the speaker was Amber O'Neill Johnston, which if you have been listening to the podcast, you know she's been a guest. You know she was a favorite of ours at the Southeast Homeschool Expo in 2025. You'll hear again in our mini series here about when I got to hear her speak at the Charlotte Mason Institute conference. She's just a phenomenal speaker. And she said something that I really needed to hear that night that has stuck with me all these years later. That was the fall of 2022. She said, she doesn't tell people she's a mom of 4. She tells people she's a mom of 1 4 times.
I love that.
And that the number of kids we have doesn't matter because we are always learning. They are unique people and they change and they grow and they have personalities, and that there is not any difference between someone who has 1 and someone who has many. And as a mom of 1, it made me feel like I belonged at the Wild and Free conference and in the Wild and Free movement, because my first conference, I attended it I had read the book earlier in the year and I had started our group just weeks before going to that conference. And I still wasn't sure, is this my place? I know that the book resonated with me and this is what I want for my homeschool, but do I actually belong here? And Amber's speech made me feel that way. And then the next morning, I was standing in line to get coffee inside the factory, and there were two women standing in front of me. Their names are Emily and Anne Marie, and they kind of glanced back at me a little bit and then glanced back at me again. And then they turned around and they said, "Hi, are you here alone?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Not anymore." And they just adopted me for the
I
day.
love it.
It was so sweet. Anne Marie and Emily, I don't know their last names. I don't talk to them, but I see them every year at the Wild and Free Conference. We're always excited. We give big hugs. We are cheering each other on. They live in different places, and this is their annual. They come together to go to this
That's cool.
conference. And they had taken another mom under their wing. Her name was Jordan. And so we all sat together. They already had seats that were better than the seats that I had been sitting in on Friday night. And we had lunch together. We spent the day together. And then at the end, it's like, bye. We're so long. Safe travels home. And then my second year, I knew to get in line earlier. And as I was standing in line, a woman came and got behind me, and I could kind of tell from her looking around and stuff that this was all new to her. And so I turned around to her and I said, "Hey, is this your first year?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you here alone?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Cool, let's hang out." And then as we were talking, I asked where she lived, and it turns out she lives just like 40 minutes from me, and we've stayed friends. She is another Kayla. She is not the Kayla that I co-host this podcast with, but she is another Kayla in my life, and she's become a really good friend. We bonded really quickly, and so that's an example where we've stayed in touch. And I said, "You're not here alone anymore." We spent the whole weekend together. And my third year was the year that I realized I need to start giving back. This is great and I love getting filled. But I said when I came home from my third year, I need to start volunteering. And if I don't volunteer, then I need to let this be a space for someone else for a couple years and I can go back when I'm ready to be filled again. But I don't want to keep taking up a seat because it does sell out every year.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask if,
Yeah.
it's because like, Teach Them Diligently and Southeast Homeschool Expo is unlimited, so I was gonna ask if this had a cap.
Yeah, it is. There is a cap. It sells out every year. And I just felt like I don't want to keep taking a seat from someone who really needs to be here the way I did my first year or even my second year. And it's not that the quality of the speeches was any less. It just was, I found myself not needing to feel refreshed in the same way, but seeing the people who were giving as volunteers, I realized I wanted to do that. And I subscribe to Wild and Free. There's 2 tiers of membership for Wild and Free. There's a free tier, and then there's also a paid tier. And that paid membership tier, you get content bundles every month. They're magazines with articles and ideas and activities, and they're beautiful, and I love them. But what I really love about my membership is the access to all of the speeches from every conference in the past. And so I don't have to go to get the speech. And part of it is being there and hearing the beautiful speeches, enjoying the music in community. There's always like some gags and jokes on the moms throughout the weekend. We get these beautiful swag bags with some like incredible gifts. And the makers market is awesome.
So, is there time allotted since it's not like the other conferences where you kinda choose what sessions to go to? Is there time allotted on Saturday to go to that makers market?
Yeah, so the doors open both on Friday night and Saturday morning well before the program starts. So you
Okay,
have time to go into the makers market. Then there's breaks in between some of the talks, not all of them, but some of them on Saturday. And there's a pretty hefty lunch break to go into
okay,
the makers market. But you can also go into the makers market while someone's talking, which
okay.
pro tip, if you are like, this talk isn't resonating with me, that's when you go to the makers market
Right.
because it's empty. But it's beautiful things. It's lots of handmade things, lots of sweet accompaniments to your homeschool. So you're not going to
Mhm.
find curriculum at the makers
Right.
market. In fact, there is specifically and explicitly, they don't let curriculum vendors come, but you might find like a unit study on something really sweet. But you also are going to find things like there's a woman who has a business called Treasures from Jennifer, and she has some great manipulatives. And there's a woman every year who brings these cool wooden swords and sells out within the first like 20 minutes of the market being open. There's shirts and all kinds of goodies, and then there's also a whole wild and free booth where you can get the books. They sell some unit studies. I don't even know that they're really considered unit studies, but they're kind of lessons around a specific topic. And then there's some of their swag. So there's a lot of beautiful things in the makers market. It feels really cozy and good. And I love they hold this conference every fall in September, like right as you feel the season turning and you're ready for some coziness. The weather outside might not be cool enough yet, but you're like, I'm ready. And everything in the makers market always just feels really cozy to me. But I went on a gajillion tangents. To answer your question, my experience volunteering was awesome. And
Yeah.
I think it's my favorite conference so far. I loved volunteering because it just felt like we were coming together under a common mission as a bunch of strangers, and we didn't leave that way. We left friends, and again, not the kind of friends that I'm like talking to all the time, but it still feels really good to have these people that I made these connections with because we have these shared values in our homeschooling. So we got there on Friday morning, and most of what that was preparing all of the goodies for the mamas and their lanyards, all of that stuff. I served on the registration team, so we had like a big push at the front of the conference to get everybody checked in, and that was really sweet to really connect with moms in line because again that line is super long, and so that opportunity to get to talk to them, warmly welcome them, find out if they're excited, find out is it their first one, is it their seventh one, what, it just was really fun. Then throughout the weekend, because the push to get everyone checked in really happens on Friday evening, we got assigned to other tasks here and there, just things that needed to be done, people that needed to be standing at a door or sitting at the registration table. It was amazing to me the hour I spent on Saturday sitting outside at the registration table while the event was going on inside. The number of people who came up and either were homeschoolers who had never heard of Wild and Free and got introduced to Wild and Free just because they happened to be out shopping at the factory or went to farmer's market that day, but also the number of people who just came up and they were curious. And when I would tell them what was happening, they were just really encouraging. Like, good for you. You're a homeschooling mom. That is amazing. Keep it up. You're here to refresh your spirit and soul. Good for you. You need that. Take that time. It just was kind of surprising, I think. It wasn't as many confused faces as I was anticipating. It just was lots of people who were really encouraging. But yeah, it just was a lot of fun to be part of the behind the scenes. So we've talked on the podcast about going back to the same place year after year, whether it's with your kids or yourself to see your own growth. And what I liked about volunteering is I had done that, but being a volunteer shifted my perspective. And I mean that physically. I was in different parts of the building and the room because of the tasks that I was needing to do, but I was still getting to hear everything and see everything. And it was cool to think about my growth from that first year sitting in the back corner to now holding doors open for others. It was a really fun, reflective experience for me.
Well, and I think you have such a special connection to Wild and Free because that's what, at least from what you've told me, that's what jump-started your homeschooling journey. And
Definitely.
I think it's more than just, we love going to Southeast Homeschool Expo. We had a blast at Teach Them Diligently, but I think this one hits home a little more for you because you have such a connection to the organization as a whole. And now you kind of graduated into this position of now you can be part of the old guard in a sort. You know what I'm saying? To pour
Yeah.
into the moms who it is their first time. So I think that's really cool. And I also, on a just more practical level, want to make sure the listeners know the perk of volunteering, the benefit of volunteering is that you do not have to pay for the conference. Now, you're going to work. You might
Yep.
not get to listen to full sessions,
Correct.
but this is definitely one of the pricier conferences that we're sharing with
Yeah.
you. And so we do
Yeah.
understand like sometimes it can be cost prohibitive for people, but if you're willing to volunteer, then, maybe that's a great way to get you to the conference.
Yeah. It gets you in for free. You will probably miss some of the talks, but I heard all of the talks except for 3 of them. And the 3 that I didn't hear, I heard parts of them. And I also last year was with one of the members of our group, actually the first person who ever came to one of the meetups that I planned as a group leader. Hey, Mary Grace. And so because I was with her, we went out to dinner on Saturday night when it was all over. And I was like, okay, I only heard the first half of this one. What else did she say? And then I said, okay, I missed the first half of that one. Where did all that start? Give me the background. So if you're planning to travel with someone else, you can get all of that information. Or if you subscribe, you can listen to the talks that you heard only parts of. And then I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is that each year that I've gone, there's also been an opportunity to get together with other group leaders. So I'm a wild and free group leader. And one of the things that makes the conference precious to me is this time that I get to go be with other group leaders. And I learn from their sage wisdom. There's camaraderie. There's an opportunity to just kind of kick back and be in a wild and free environment and not be in charge for a minute, which is nice. And it's been in different places. Sometimes it's been held at the factory as kind of more of a meeting, retreat kind of feeling. And then sometimes it's been really informal. It's been held at a local winery nearby that's absolutely beautiful. And we sit up on a hill and watch the sunset and just hang out together. So, and I appreciate all the flavors. I don't care what the group leader gathering looks like or what happens during it. I just want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that part makes it extra special for you because you do get that time to connect. Because I know y'all have a group chat system, so you can still talk to each other throughout, but then just to be able to gather in person, not for business, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
purposes, just for funsies to enjoy each other's
Yeah.
company. That's lovely.
It's
So
really
if
good.
somebody was interested in volunteering, if they're like, I want to go, but the only way I'm getting there is if I volunteer, what is that process?
So the website is bewildandfree.org. And when you go onto their website, when there is a conference coming up, and I should say, there have been years where they've held two conferences. One, and the one in September has been in Franklin for the last 10 years. This will be the 11th year in 2026. But for several years, there were conferences. There was one in Dallas one year. The next year, it was in San Luis Obispo. So they're not necessarily all in Franklin, Tennessee. But for 2026, for example, and the process should remain the same for any future conferences, wherever they may be, you go onto the Wild and Free website, and if there is a conference coming up, that is going to be one of the prominent things on the website. But there's also a conference tab. And when you click on that, and you go into the conference webpage, if you scroll down to the bottom, there will always be a button that says apply to be a volunteer if they're still accepting applications. And at some point, they have to start selecting volunteers ahead of the conference because what they recommend is if you really want to go to the conference, if you are like, this is a must for me, that even before you get selected as a volunteer, you should buy a ticket and then you can sell it. They have suggestions for selling your tickets. So, but at some point, they have to tell people that they've filled all the volunteer
Right.
spots. But as long as they're accepting applications, then there's an application to apply. And the application asks questions about how you like to work. You know, are you an extrovert or an introvert? Do you like to play while you're getting the work done, or do you like to get the work done and then play? Those kinds of questions to figure out which team you'd be a best fit on. There's questions about what kinds of experience you have, where you think you would serve best, things like that. And you just fill that out. And I've only applied once to be a volunteer and I got selected. So I only know what that process looks like. But it is a little bit of a wait. It was about 6 weeks of a wait. And I've applied this year to be a volunteer and I have not heard back yet. And we're probably at about the 6-week mark. So hopefully I'll hear back soon.
Yeah.
But it's really fun. I really enjoyed volunteering, and I am sure there will come a time in my homeschooling that I will feel like, oh, I need to just go and sit and let myself be poured into and refreshed again. But for the foreseeable future, I would really like to be volunteering.
That's
It was
awesome.
really, really fun. Yeah.
So
And
if by the
sorry,
time
what was
this
I saying?
comes out, we'll be about a month closer to the conference than we are
Hopefully.
at the time of recording. And high likelihood, if it's not already sold out right now, it will be by the time this episode is released, maybe. Am I correct in that?
It's definitely still available at the time of recording. I would anticipate that it will sell out. It usually sells out about a month before.
Okay. Okay. So
So
people should still
if
be
you're,
able to go get tickets if they want
yes.
them.
But if you're listening to this a little bit after it airs, or if I'm wrong and it sells out early this year, I will say This year, there's some incredible new speakers coming to the stage. And I think that could change how fast it sells out because the last several years, it's been a lot of the same voices and they're all fantastic, beautiful, wonderful voices. But seeing some new faces and hearing some new voices might change how quickly it sells out. And we can talk a little bit about the speakers too. But if it sells out, then I would follow the Wild and Free social media and maybe even direct message them. If you are in a Wild and Free group, ask your Wild and Free leader to be paying attention to the group leaders chat
Mm,
because even if I'm not selling my ticket, I can go on there. Let's say you had bought a ticket and you're not going to use it anymore. I can go on and say, I have a member in my group who has a ticket and is selling it. And the big thing is there's different rates. Like most conferences, there's an early bird rate, there's an advanced rate, and there's like the final rate. And so oftentimes you can find someone selling their early bird rate
mm,
ticket in August when the
yeah.
early bird rate is over. So those are ways people will hashtag on social media that they're selling a ticket. It's pretty active come
Okay.
August, people
That's
selling
cool.
tickets all the way up to the day before because
Oh, wow.
people, get sick or childcare changes. Because this is a conference that, as Wild and Free says it, we love fathers and children, but this conference is for mothers only, except if you have a nursing child. So a lot of times people at the last minute will have to cancel because, the grandparents were going to watch the kiddos and now they
Yeah.
can't, or the kids all got sick, whatever the thing is. So there's tickets for sale all the way up until the day before.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah. And we should talk a little bit about the speakers. There's definitely some people who are Wild and Free voices that are going to consistently be a part of the conference. Amber O'Neill Johnston is, of course, one of those. And Ainsley Arment always gives a speech to kick off the conference weekend. Sally Clarkson is always a part of the conference. She's sort of the grande dame of the conference. And then there's some other folks who have been a part of it. They're maybe out of rotation right now, but by going to the Wild and Free conference, that's where I've heard Jenny Urich speak from 1,000 Hours Outside. I've heard Aaron Lochner speak. Elsie Udicello is regularly speaking at the conference. And then also Leslie Martino often speaks at the conference. So, I've heard Jennifer Pepito speak there. So it's a lot of really cool voices. And this year there's some new voices joining the stage. So definitely go to their website and check them out.
Well, do you have a win? And I know it might be hard to narrow it down to one, but I'm going to ask you to narrow it down to one overarching win for all of your experiences at the Wild and Free conferences.
It's so hard, but I think I'm going to pick a moment from our group leaders gathering last year when we were playing this or that as group leaders. Things like, would you rather lead a 4-mile hike in the rain or do a craft with glitter indoors? And you had to pick this or that. And as we were playing that game, there was something about would you rather encounter a bear or a venomous snake on your hike? And I think I was the only person who chose venomous snake. And they all sort of were like, what's wrong with you? You want to? And I was like, I don't want to. But if I see a snake and a snake sees me, back away as quiet as can be. And all the group leaders were like, what did you just say? What did you just do? What was that? And I got to share with them these little rhymes we do at the beginning of our meetups. And they all were like, send that immediately. I need that. And it just was fun to feel like I had something worthwhile and new to contribute. And so I shared it with the group leaders that were there. It was a small group of us. But then later when we got home, I shared it with the larger group chat. And like even Ainsley was like, oh my gosh, Kat, these are great. Thank you so much. And it just was fun to like feel like something that is part of our group's culture
Yeah.
resonated with other people and that I got to like share it. And maybe now it exists in another Wild and Free group because of that moment.
Yeah.
So that's my like, it's hard for me to pick a win. That one's
No,
fresh. So
I
that's my
love that.
fresh win.
And I love thinking of like other Wild and Free groups having the same little mantras that we have and,
Yeah.
that just becoming like a little bit part of maybe Wild and Free culture. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
special.
And I have to admit, I did not come up with the majority of our like nature hiking rhymes. I found them. So I'm not taking credit for it. I adapted them for our group and then shared what I adapted with the Greater Wild and Free. But whoever made that up, I don't want them to think that I'm taking credit for it. I don't know who made it up. You're a genius, whoever you are, but it wasn't me.
I love it. I love it. Well, when you are not wild and free conferencing, where can the people find you?
Well, usually at a Wild and Free meetup, but also I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Recreating Camp. And Kayla, where can they find you?
You can find me at _scratchmadesimple on Instagram and at _scratchmadesimple on TikTok. And you can find us at Homeschooling Down South on all the socials. And we would love to hear from you. If you've been to a Wild and Free conference or another conference that you really love, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at hello@homeschoolingdownsouth.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we would love for you to rate and review us wherever you're listening. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye, y'all.
And we'll love together, we'll learn together, explore this whole wide world together. No matter where we are.